Hi, and welcome back to This Week in Voice, Season 9, Episode 2. We're off and running in Season 9. It's going to carry us through the rest of 2023. We're excited. We've got a lot of great guests and a lot of important things going on to talk about. So we're all very grateful for that. My name is Bradley Metrock. I'm CEO of Project Voice, general partner of Project Voice Capital Partners, and we've got a fantastic group to talk about this week's news. Reena, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us who you are. Tell us about Wisdocity.
Sure. So thank you for having me. And along with Ricardo and Nieves, it's going to be an interesting discussion. So I call myself as an entrepreneur and an author. More specifically, I call myself as the solo bootstrapped entrepreneur, and I'm pretty proud of what we have been able to achieve in my professional world as an entrepreneur. I have been running my so-called IT staffing and technology company. Then I started working into developing an application that will be serving for the staffing and recruitment industry. And then I started a nonprofit called Mom Relaunch to help women who are in a career break to get back into the workforce. So as you can connect the dots, I kind of specialize in the workforce and the talent industry, talent development industry. And currently it is such an interesting phase that we all are going through because of the issues and challenges and the excitement in the changing technology. Taking all those experience that I had, I also wrote a book called Career Interrupted that takes people through the journey of managing their work-life situations. And we specifically cover 4 personas in there: people who are laid off, people who are trying to transition, people who are working but not happy. And one of my favorite personas that I call about is when people are deciding if it is ready to start a family, and we call it as the parental indecision. So we cover it from all aspects and give a very action-oriented book, so I'm very proud of all that we are doing. Now, my latest venture is we are trying to create a generative AI product in which we will be bringing experts and taking my experience in the career navigation and workforce. We'll be bringing experts within that domain to help share their wisdom with the people who are looking for it, but they cannot get one-on-one time. So we are creating a digital avatars for them, and so to interact with it with the learners. We are very excited about it in terms of how it is developing and the domain and the market segment that we are trying to not only work with the people professionally, but also I'm doing that for my community here. And there's a big aspect of learning from the local community members who are experts. And that's why the term Wisdom City comes in, which means building the city of wisdom. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we are doing, along with a few other things that I do for youth and community.
Yeah, you're busy. You're multifaceted. And I should have mentioned Mom Relaunch. That's a great project in addition to everything else. Reena, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm super excited.
Next up is Nieves, Abalos, Serrano. Nieves, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us as well. Take a moment, tell us who you are, tell us who you're with.
Thank you, Bradley. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here. As you mentioned, my name is Nieves Abalos. I'm the CPO and co-founder of Monoceros Lab. Our company is dedicated to pushing the boundaries of voice technology in Spanish. We are focused on Spanish, and we work extensively with virtual assistants like Alexa to create innovative solutions for businesses and individuals here in Spain and in other speaking Spanish countries. At Monoceros Labs, we've developed a cutting-edge technology too for synthetic voices. We are using technology based on a generative AI, which allows us to create new voices that don't identify the voices which learns from, and we also clone voices, maintaining the identity and the different accents of the Spanish communities. No, so it's cool too. And we are also in private beta with our product Phonos, F-O-N-O-S. It not only helps in generating content, but also enables people to communicate through synthetic voices in Spanish and many other languages. Imagine if Spanish speakers could listen to this podcast translated into Spanish with our voices, maintaining also our identities. No, so it's so exciting, and it's an exciting time for us, and we are thrilled to be part of this industry too.
I love the enthusiasm. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you on the show. Next up, we have Ricardo Marin from Vozy. Ricardo, you can tell me if I mispronounce your last name or not. Tell us who you are. Tell us about Vozy.
Well, thank you very much, Bradley. Thank you for having me. Thanks to all my panelists, my colleagues here, Reena and Nieves. My name is Ricardo Marin. You pronounced it very well. Thank you very much for that. I am currently the Chief Product Officer of Vozy. I'm a co-founder of the company as well, but I'm more in a technical kind of side of things. I've been all my life, all my career, I've been mostly focused on artificial intelligence and machine learning. Since 2010, when I published my first article, I've been trying to build a lot of kind of like needs in terms around artificial intelligence. I have been an entrepreneur as well, more on the IoT side and the data analytics side for retail. And with Vozy, since 2018, we have worked a lot into conversational AI and how to solve a big problem that I think most of people have had before, which is a bad customer service experience. Our main mission is to build technology around solving a big problem, which is making people to experience a very good customer service with their loved brands, and how can they engage more with them. We have been mostly focused on Latin America. We are a Colombian startup. We were born here, but now, after even a little bit before the pandemic, we started doing remote work for all of our companies. So in terms of a company from a specific country, we are just basically from all over Latin America. We serve different corporate companies in Latin America as well. So we are mainly focused on of enterprises that have a scalability problems in their communications, basically. We work with two main products. We work with a virtual assistant that mainly goes through, or it's deployed in the telephone channel, the telephone which we all know from all over the years, in which we automate conversations and we automate requirements, and so we solve customer requirements through that virtual assistant. We can deploy it as well in different social networks such as WhatsApp, which is very popular in Latin America. And we also have a second product, which is speech analytics, in which we take on the side of auditing all historical conversations and real-time conversations to determine if users are being attended or their customer requirements are being solved in their first contact, for example. That's basically what we're building. We have been trying to disrupt this huge industry for 5 years now. And we are trying to expand a little bit our frontiers to other countries, mainly in the Spanish language.
Great to have you on the show. Yeah, really interesting company. And yeah, thank you for joining us. So with that, we're going to get to the news. And let me go to the first story, and I'm going to read the headline. This is from the Today Show. A boy saw 17 doctors over 3 years for chronic pain. ChatGPT found the diagnosis. I'm going to read the subheadline too. Alex experienced pain that stopped him from playing with other children, but doctors had no answers to why. His frustrated mom asked ChatGPT for help. And we're going to go in the same order we did the intros in. We'll rotate as we go through. So, Reena, I'm going to start with you. Your take on this article, what stood out to you, and your thoughts as to whether this is a red herring of sorts, that this is just some sort of lucky thing that managed to happen, and we shouldn't put our faith in something like ChatGPT to help us when we really need it, or is it the exact opposite, where this is an indicator of many more things to come, that we need to be using these tools more? Share with us your thoughts.
Sure. So I'm going to share a few things on this, apart from just from the article. Just as I said, like that one of the things that stood out is the term mom, because that's what I do, and I work a lot with the moms. So first thing that stood out to me is, wow, what's the perseverance of the mom? That is amazing. That anyone who shows that skill, basically, again, I'm going back to what I'm really into in the industry, and things that we teach at Mom Relaunch is about transferable skills. And what it stood out is that term perseverance. I'm not ready to give up. I'm going to find the solution. And I think if anyone wants to learn from that article, is that skill, first of all. Okay. So it's a little different angle from the technology perspective, but it's very important. And in fact, I've shared this article with everyone in my program. The second thing, it reminded me of my own journey. And I'm going to share a little personal anecdote here, is about when I had my first child. He's 21 years old now. And I started facing a lot of health issues in terms of regular weekly fever, and the amount of doctors that I have seen, and the amount of tests and medicines from any kind of thing that I can think of, I have been through, and I still don't know the reason for it. And I wish there was a ChatGPT kind of thing that could have helped me. So, and I still face a little bit of those issues, but it has reduced significantly. Now, coming to the actual article about the technology and how it can be and what is the future looks like, there are two things I would say. The third thing that we just jumped out to me was, we are not comparing apples to apples here. So we are talking about 17 doctors who are specialized in their own area, and a technology like ChatGPT, which is consolidating every knowledge bites and things that has happened so many places. You cannot expect one doctor to know everything. Now, it is definitely goes back to mom saying that, hey, I'm not ready to give up, but she has used it as a tool. Even after getting that analysis and diagnosis from ChatGPT, she did went back to the doctors and said, hey, is this true? And that's what we talk about, the human intervention. Yes, so if we use ChatGPT as a tool, and if we are not using it as a tool, I think we are missing out. Now, is it going to be the replacement for doctors? There's still a long way to go, in my opinion. No matter being the human side of it, I think if I put myself as that mom, I would say, yeah, I think this is the right thing, but can someone still verify it? So that verification is still going to keep the human in the loop. That verification will still make the human understand and verify that it is the right way. And again, who knows, later down the road, ChatGPT will, these tools will evolve into that. The third and the fourth aspect is, what can we do for the professionals like doctors and others to at least consult, for them to consult before saying that, hey, everything is on the mom's side to do it, rather than it would have been a very different story if the doctors themselves would have done a little bit of research and said, let me ask ChatGPT myself, what is happening here, right? That could have changed the story a little bit more, in my opinion. So I think I've brought in a few things in there. If we summarize and say, this tool and this story is a real indication that if we don't utilize the tools that are available to us, we may fall short in what we are doing and may fall short in our productivity, no matter who that professional is. Today, if I have Zoom, that's why we are having this whole thing. And tomorrow, if somebody say, oh, I'm going to only meet in person, they're not utilizing this tool. So that's kind of in my nutshell analysis on that.
No, I think that's great. And, you know, just to touch on something that you said, how many medical professionals are using ChatGPT? The answer is a lot. How many are talking to the media about it? This
Zero.
many. You know, these are proud, you know, professionals who would never, they'd rather go jump off a cliff than admit to using ChatGPT or that it helped them in any way. But if the truth were known, I suspect it would be very different. I appreciate your comments on that. Nieves, I'm coming to you. Same question. Interesting article with this. I want to get your thoughts. What stood out to you? And is this a glimpse into the future, or is this just some random thing that just happened to happen?
So, Bradley, can I just one comment based on the fact that you said about the proud doctors who are not ready to speak?
Sure.
Is because
Sure.
I grew up in India, and whenever we used to go and ask doctors, can you explain why it is happening, or what is the real problem? Or if we used to suggest something to them, this could be the problem because this is what my body is, this is what I'm feeling. And their statement, majority, I would say not all, majority would say, are you the doctor or I'm the doctor? Right? So even if they go back, and I find that completely different here, because in US, by the way, that they are sitting and explaining you, this is what is happening, this is what is the reason. And I find that as a drastic change, in not in terms of the technology and the ego and the proud, but also the cultural side of it that may be stopping the doctors to be, or medical professionals to be. So I just wanted to bring that part out.
No, yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, we've got a lot of unsettled business in terms of how the human ego fits into this, but when you throw culture and geography into that, and it just gets more complex. I appreciate that as well. Nieves, same question. Your thoughts on the piece? Is this a glimpse of things to come, or just some random thing that?
I would say that we have to take into account that, as Reena said, this is a tool. ChatGPT is a tool, no? And we must not compare ChatGPT to a doctor in terms of the ability of reasoning and having and taking all the knowledge and taking this into account to create or to say this mother what could happen with her kid, no? So I think that as a tool, we must know which downsides or disadvantages this tool has in order to be able to use it in the good way, no? Instead of the bad way, no? And I would say that ChatGPT only is very good at guessing which is the next word that could fit the best in the prompt, and is not it doesn't have the ability to understand what it's saying, no, in some ways, or which is the mother asking for, no. So I would say that this has been a lucky guess because I'm sure that most of the diagnostics that could ChatGPT do could be failed too because of this, because of a statistic. So taking this into account, we could use it for the good ways and also trying to minimize the bad ways, no?
So that's a good vote of confidence there for the technology. And Ricardo, I want to go to you and ask the same question. So you've heard two pretty enthusiastic responses so far. I want to get your thoughts. What stood out to you from the piece? And again, is this a glimpse of things to come?
I would add, answering your question, if it is the future, I would add to Nieves as well that this a really good analogy on how these models work and what they're doing on beneath the hood, which I find it very useful in, is that these models or these kinds of tools are kind of like parents. They know what they're talking. They're really good at talking. You can teach a parrot how to talk, how to imitate a human, and basically they become very good at it. They talk, but they don't know what they're talking about. They just simply build in a probabilistic kind of like distribution on which is the next word that should be said, right? So at the end of the day, this is kind of like a parrot, and it will not know exactly or will not have that ability of reasoning causality or determining what is the real cause of something. But on the other hand, what is really good about this is that these models are very good at understanding the context and understanding what is happening in a bunch of documents and texts. So that means that at the end of the day, this could lead to, if we build upon this could lead into models that really become good at determining or classifying diseases. This could be the next big thing in healthcare, just not understanding pattern, or sorry, just not only determining the over time your metrics of your health, but also determining patterns and determining what could be or what could be happening to you. We understand that there's a huge responsibility on all in the health industry to leave that kind of diagnosis to a machine. But as Nieves was saying, this is just a tool. And as Reena was saying, we should all understand and we should all know how to use these tools to better or improve our own human ability. So therefore, I think that this is kind of the new beginning. This could be something that we all know that this is not a very good diagnosis, that we cannot let machines do that right now. But building upon these models and building upon this kind of new technology could lead us to some of those solutions and some of those applications of the technology.
You bring up an interesting point. You know, if I say to, you know, I just turned 43 years old. So if I say to my child, you need to eat your vegetables, right? If let's say there's two of me sitting here. One of me says to my child, you need to eat your vegetables, but I have no idea why. I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue what the health impact of that is, or how human biology works, or anything about long-term health, or anything about correlation versus causation in terms of nutrition. I don't know anything about anything. I'm just parroting something that I heard mentioned at some point before. Then the other version of me is sitting here saying, you need to eat your vegetables. And I know all about all of those things. I know all about the reactions and how things acclimate to the body, that we consume, and vegetables are better than almost every other option, and also the child is young, and taking into all of the various factors, and it comes from a very knowledgeable place. It's the same statement, it's the same words, it's the same guidance, but is it the same? I think that's a lot of the struggle we're going through right now. I think the realization we're coming to is it's the same, and that's a dangerous place for credentialed, educated, degreed, not educated, wrong word, degreed professionals, because now it's not a matter of just saying the right thing at the right time. You got to have levels above that. So it's really, really interesting what's happening with this. I mean, like in this particular story, you had ChatGPT tell the parent that you may want to go look at this because this is something that your child may be suffering from. The story, kind of, I mean, other than circling back to the doctor and saying, hey, you agree with this? And oh yeah, well, this is what it is. The story kind of ends there, right? Like nobody's doing a forensic analysis of ChatGPT to figure out well, my God, where did this come from? Like, to some degree, the truth is the truth, and it doesn't matter who says it, and that's also at odds. It's kind of how our society works right now too. So it's really, really interesting story. It's great to hear y'all's comments. Any closing thoughts before we move on?
Well, again, we're working on what you just said about two versions of yourself, right? I think you have to add a little, another persona to that, is who's listening to you, who's listening to the two versions of you, and whether it is same or not spoken by the two versions of you will rely more on who's on the other side. If you have a kid who's trusted you like anything and doesn't question, they will say, yeah, both are the same, right? They were not going to ask you. But if they have a kid who is like super curious about that, why did you say that? And explain me all these things. The challenge is not about ChatGPT having that, making it sound the same, but it's the transparency of, like what you said about, is nobody's doing a forensic analysis of where this data is coming from. And it's not only, even if we ask, is ChatGPT giving that transparency? Is these large language models providing and taking that accountability of where the data source is? And that is where the trust, and that is where this whole discussion is happening around bringing that transparency of how and what data is used to train that. And I think it is a bigger discussion. I don't think we can resolve in this channel here, but I think that trust and making sure that the source of the data is validated is going to be a big industry there.
Well, it's a good segue into our second story, and I'm going to read the headline here, and I'm going to rotate the order as well. Nieves, I'll start with you, and then Ricardo, and then Reena, you as well. Let me read this. This is from TechCrunch. Druid, a conversational AI platform for enterprises that integrates with ChatGPT, raises $30 million. So this is just from a day or two ago. And, my question is not so much about this particular company. It's an interesting company. If you have a comment on that, that's fine. It's more about, Nieves, are we getting to the point now, like, what's the headline here? Is the inclusion of ChatGPT in the headline central to why they were able to raise money or why anyone cares? Or is that a hindrance to them? I'm curious to your thoughts on whether ChatGPT was helpful or hurtful to them to get to this fundraising point, and then also anything else that jumps out to you just about the article or about what the company does, because there's, as the article does point out, there's a lot of companies doing this line of work.
Yes, I think that ChatGPT in the title has helped them to raise money, is for sure. Is what we are seeing in the market. Generative AI, ChatGPT, and so on looks like brings more value to your valuation of or whatever you are building. No, but we are also building technology, and when you try to use these tools, these large language models, you understand which limitations they have, no? And they look like they chat, but they don't chat, no? It's like on themselves, they are not able to really communicate and to create conversations with users, because in the very first step, they lie sometimes, hallucinations, no? This is the first thing that makes a conversation not viable, no? If you start not trusting in the people or the machine you are talking to, this could raise some concerns, no? So it's clear that ChatGPT and large language models alone, they don't bring enough value, in my point of view, to these kind of tools, conversational AI tools, which you use and put in front of millions of users. No? So you have to use several different approaches to get what is needed, no? And that's what is said in the article. They have a platform from long before with traditional AI tools, conversational AI tools, and they have added ChatGPT to manage different aspects of the conversation. No, this is the good way, I think. You are bringing and you are bringing the upsides, the advantages of both approaches. No. But of course, putting ChatGPT on the title raises valuation.
Yeah, and it brings a lot of attention to it too. You know, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think if you ask the executives of any of these companies that are creating these larger systemic frameworks, you know, like a Druid or some of the other ones mentioned in the article, they would tell you that, you know, ChatGPT has a place. They're gonna minimize ChatGPT in those conversations. No. This is all us. This is don't pay attention to that behind the curtain. But you can see how the media wants to spin it. It's the exact opposite. And I think your comments were great. Ricardo, I'm coming to you. You know, I'm interested to hear your point of view on this, just with everything that Vozy does. Is ChatGPT something that I've seen multiple approaches. I've seen we don't use it at all. I've seen we use it, but it's just a part, an ingredient. It's part of the alchemy of our overall service. And then, oh, no, we're fully embracing this thing. Tell me where y'all fit in, and any other takeaways from the piece.
Sure. Basically, the way we see it is, and to answer a little bit your question about the name, and specifically ChatGPT in the name, the way we have seen it is that we, way before 2018, 2019, we were trying to push this into big companies, try to automate their contact center operations. What we ended up doing was first evangelizing, basically trying to teach all of our customers what could be done, trying to make them imagine what could be the future of this and how far can we go trying to automate a customer requirement. We then used some tools. We now used, in our point of view, we now used ChatGPT as well. The main thing here is how do we solve the main problem, which is how customers are being, how the requirements are being solved in a customer service experience, right? So the main point is how to solve that problem. Now, what kind of tool do you use is what, in the way we saw it, is that in 2018 we have to evangelize and we have to teach a lot of people how far we can get. But now VCs, investors, everybody has understood how far this can get, and that's why when they see ChatGPT, when they see conversational AI, they're dumping a lot of money into it, because they can see that there's a huge opportunity, because they now realize how far these things can go and this technology can go. The global contact center alone software market is a 24 billion dollar a year industry. Just having a little bit of that huge market, it's very meaningful for a lot of investors. So now that they have realized that you can automate fully a requirement, even coding, as some people has been doing with ChatGPT, they now understand that dumping money into that kind of technology can give a very good big profit in the near future. Now, taking that into account, in our perspective, as I was mentioning before, the way we see it is that there's a bunch of people being stuck in customer service processes for 1 hour, not getting their solutions being met. I mean, there's a huge problem with that. There's a huge amount of investment on the side of companies and enterprises to solve that problem. But all that we have come up with is just using a contact center, using the humans to solve that kind of problem. So the way we see it is that we should fully embrace whatever help us to solve that main problem. In our end, we have embraced OpenAI, obviously, because their models are really good. the results have been really good. We also have done our own research and have built our own LLM fine-tuning implementations. We have done that for specific use cases. And it depends as well on what the company wants. For example, we have had clients that they wanted to train their own model with their own data and their own infrastructure, in which we only do basically just as a consultant or know-how service. And then we also have had clients that say, okay, the data that I'm gonna use for this process itself is public enough that I can use OpenAI, so I won't have any kind of problem with that. So they do it that way. So that depends on specifically the use case, but our main take here is that we have a mission, that we can have a bunch of tools, and as Nieves was saying, the main secret sauce here is how do you implement all those stuff, and how do you cohesively integrate them to solve a specific problem.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. With Project Voice Capital Partners, where we see a lot of different stuff that is essentially just one little increment of something added to ChatGPT, like a ChatGPT wrapper, so to speak. And that's going to be a no from us. It's been a no from us a bunch because not only is it just uncreative and lacking any sort of authenticity whatsoever, but also you worry about if you're really built on this one thing. We know that the regulatory and policymaking environment is yet to be determined. It's in flux, and we don't really know where that's going to shake out. So that's kind of how we look at it. Is, as you said, you want to see like a synthesis, and Nieves echoed this as well. You want to see a synthesis of tools, of which ChatGPT is one of them, and it's a good way to hedge your bets and serve the customer. Reena, I want to ask you the same thing. Anything in particular jump out with this piece about these conversational AI platforms, and specifically to your point made in the previous with the previous story, you're talking about security and privacy, things like that. Do you think it's a mistake for companies to lead with ChatGPT, or to allow the media? To some degree, Druid had some control over this, but do you feel like it's undesirable to have articles written that lead with ChatGPT, given everything that's coming up? Just want to hear your thoughts on all of that.
Sure. So, number one, leading with these names and things around ChatGPT is not new anymore. So, as of now, it doesn't make people, oh, this is happening in ChatGPT again. We have gone through that cycle. So I don't know what was the angle that they were trying to put that name in the title in terms of bringing that integration. Second of all, if I look at it, I think I'll be more concerned knowing that ChatGPT themselves are going to release ChatGPT Enterprise. Where will that put this company into picture, right? If ChatGPT is doing the same thing. So ChatGPT is partners like, when I say partners, because of course, when we did our first POC, and we are still integrating our Wisdocity product to make sure that we understand the APIs and things from OpenAI. So we understand where it is and what is the value proposition of having that trust and the data source and the people that they're giving us the knowledge, and not going into all the ChatGPT. But there is a play of OpenAI to use with the knowledge base that companies and enterprises have. So they would have in a better position. It's like, it seems like you're adding a wrapper, as you said, on top of ChatGPT and producing this. Third thing that I go back and say, oh, so what's new in that this company is doing? There's tons of companies that is already doing the same thing in the conversational AI and in customer service thing. In fact, wearing the hat of my mom Relaunch, I look at it and I find articles that say lot of women are going to be uh, uh, affected by the customer service roles. And I'm thinking, okay, you're doing it, but the effect is there will be a lot of displacement. So now we are opening our program for Mom Relaunch to even bring women who are transitioning from an existing career who will be affected by these technologies and getting them into a different technology area. So I look at this article in a very different way from what I hear. And it's like, I didn't find anything particularly enticing in terms of what they are doing, how they are doing it. And of course, there is a huge market there. So to Ricardo's point, even if you get in that a little bit of a market share with that industry, it's great. But what's the big deal? I couldn't find that big deal about this in this article. So other than the fact that you have raised me being a bootstrapped entrepreneur, that's one thing I've never done. So it's, oh wow, they can raise money for this kind of product, which is nothing new. So what can be done, what it is there. So I didn't find anything very interesting, other than the fact that it opens up a new area for us to help women who will be disproportionately transitioned out of the job.
I like that. I like saying that there's nothing interesting about one of these stories. There's nothing to there's I think that's interesting in and of itself. You know what I mean? Which is kind of weird, but I agree. I think that if we had a nickel for every one of these companies, we'd have a lot of nickels. And there's a lot more coming down the pike, and there's got to be some sort of differentiating factor. It's like barbecue restaurants. It's like, you can't just open another one. You got to have some sort of reason. You know what I mean? Some sort of differentiation. We're at that point. We're at the point where mentioning ChatGPT is either absolutely no value add, or it's a minus in terms of the company and like customers going to the company. Getting the media coverage is good, but I would say that article was not very flattering for Druid, in my opinion. I think that I would say we'll call that a wash in terms of, yes, they get their name out there, but no, you start to read a little deeper, and I don't think it's that great. So it kind of leaves us in this gray zone. I love the way you ended that, because it's this ambiguous kind of nebulous area, like where are we going exactly, that it kind of leaves you with. And we'll leave that right where it should be left, which is right there. Ricardo, I'm going to start with you with the next story, and I'm going to read out the headline. This is from Computer World. WWDC 2024, is Apple on the road to Siri 2.0? And so in the last 10 minutes of the show, I want to give the three of you a chance to share your thoughts on this. And Ricardo, I'm going to start with you, and then Reena, and close with Nieves. Over the history of this show, we've asked a bunch of times, is Apple worth paying attention to? They really are just kind of sitting there, not impacting a whole lot in the realm of conversational AI, although their legacy looms large. This is a super interesting piece. Just want to get your thoughts. What stands out?
Sure. So on what I think about this is, you mentioned it as you just mentioned it as well. They have a huge experience in terms of conversational AI. Siri is the example of that. And the main or the latest strategy that they have done or taken, I would do an analogy with what they have done with virtual reality. In that industry, as well as I'm sure you know, they have been a little bit kind of late, so to speak, to that product, the Apple Vision and the Apple Vision Pro, right? What they did with that was really amazing. I mean, they always take a lot of time into thinking very good how a new technology is going to impact their users, and as we were talking before, how is going to cohesively integrate with all of the other devices and products that they sell. The main idea, or the main, as you may already know, they are really customer centric. So they really understand their users and what they want. So they want to integrate everything, any kind of new technology, very good with that. So they even, I mean, I don't know if you remember when all smartphones or when smartphones were coming up, the copy paste functionality was not very common, right? And Apple took a little bit of time to really understand how they build it into their system. So it was really cohesively and really, really good without any kind of friction. So in that sense, I think that they're doing that. They're trying, and the same news says, the same article says that they're spending millions of dollars a day in training these large language models. So I think that what they're trying to do is understand really how are they going to deliver this to their users. Photoshop has done it really well with their product, building images out of the blue with generative AI just by typing a prompt. In health, we have seen, I mean, recognizing patterns to determine illnesses. I mean, and in that case, I think they're trying to do that, trying to know how they can integrate it. They also talk about integrating with shortcuts, and I don't know if you have used shortcuts before in an Apple device. It's not very easy to use. So I think there's a huge opportunity there in terms of automating your life through a virtual assistant.
So you're optimistic.
Yeah, very optimistic.
Excellent. Yeah, and I thought your comments were spot on. Reena, coming to you. Interesting piece about Apple, about Siri. Your thoughts?
Well, before I answer this question, let me thank you once again for inviting me for the Project Voice conference in Chattanooga, where I met Adam Shire, and he did a presentation in our school district on August 31st about how he thought about Siri as a product. And of course, knowing him, he did it with his magic show. So when I saw that article, it's like, oh, wow, that is such a amazing thing to be talking about, because not only from the perspective of what is Siri 2.0, but interacting with the actual founder and learning how it all started, it gives me a completely different perspective here. Apple as a company, you also mentioned that, is Apple being late or left behind, or is it something happening? I personally think Apple as a company is one of the so-called responsible companies, just my perspective and opinion. Yesterday, I also saw an article, I would say not only an article, a LinkedIn post with a video that I think was amazing, where Tim Cook himself was acting in that video, and they were talking about the sustainability and the climate control. And that is one post I did, pretty interesting comments and responses. So Apple as a company, I think if they are doing and if they're taking time, I think there could be multiple reasons rather than rushing and trying to do because others are doing it, is how I look at it. Again, I use Apple laptop, I use Apple AirPod, but I'm not a big fan of iPhone. I'm an Android user. So I see what things Apple, when they release into a market, where they do things, there is a quality associated with it. Okay. Now, if they're thinking about if Siri 2.0 is going to be the next product, I'm sure when it comes into the market and when it is there, and when Apple come into the picture of these conversational AI, it will learn from being the trendsetter from Siri original, apply all those learnings and come up with a product that is a little bit more sane, a little bit more trustworthy, a little bit more something that we can rely on. So I'm looking forward to this next, how Apple comes into the picture. And if you all have not seen that video, I would highly recommend take a look at it and see, maybe they're analyzing what is the climate impact of all this craziness going on. Who knows?
I've seen that video, Reena, that you're referring to, their ad, and Apple has paid a lot of money to convince you of their sustainability, that they care about sustainability. So I'm glad to see that that's working. I'm just giving you grief. We both love Adam, and certainly his involvement with Siri and creating it and all of that, it shades our perspective on it. But yeah, no, I think your comments are great. And Nieves, I'm coming to you for the last word. Interesting article, interesting stuff going on with Apple and Siri coming out of their, in the context of their conference. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that they are obviously doing some work there with large language model and trying to improve series capabilities. And I agree with Ricardo in terms of, yes, they already know how to apply these kind of things and make them seamlessly useful in everyday products. So I'm looking forward to use it and to know how can they help us, no, in every way. But I also want to know how they can leverage this because they are so privacy first now, no? How they are mixing these kind of things, no? Yes, we know they are working on chips on the mobile. They are going to improve. This is going to improve a lot of things. But this kind of research interests me so much. So let's see how they do it.
Y'all are very optimistic about this company. We'll let that slide. We'll live with that. Reena,
we will have to have another discussion on it, but
yes, there's no doubt about that. It's like y'all remember this company like made a MacBook where the space bar didn't work, right? I mean, you remember some of this stuff, but like all companies, you take the good with the bad. Reena, Nieves, Ricardo, thank you for giving your time. Thank you for sharing your expertise and perspectives with not just me, but the audience as well. It's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you very
much.
Thank
you. Got it. So for This Week in Voice, Season 9, Episode 2, thank you for listening on your podcast provider of choice. Thank you for watching if you're watching us on YouTube. Until next time.